This meeting is being recorded.
I've just started recording. Close to 22 already there. Let's get it started. We are over by 2 minutes. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone. Good morning. Once again, thanks for joining on Saturday morning. As a part of our PMIPCC Agile series. I'm hearing echo. Can you go on mute? PMIPCC Agile series season 2. We have uh, Bhaskar Reddy today. But before handing over to the Bhaskar Reddy sir, so we are recording all our sessions and uploading into the YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel PMIPCC Pearl City Hyderabad chapter. When you go search this channel, you can see the playlist you can see the season 1 and season 2 playlist as well separately. And thanks once again, sir. And Bhaskar Reddy, sir, already he covered, he took topic in season 1 as well. And season 2, we are looking for more advanced topic. So Bhaskar Reddy has come forward to take this topic on engineering excellence by managing the technical debt. Little bit about Bhaskar Reddy. He is our very well-known person in our chapter. Bhaskar Reddy, and he's a senior agile coach, enterprise agile coach, and expert in DevOps as well. And yeah, over to you, sir. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Vinay, for that warm intro. And good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for joining. So let me share my screen as well. Almost there.
వాళ్ళు వీళ్ళు మీరు మాట్లాడుతున్నది పెట్టుంటది.
Can you see Vinay?
Not yet, sir. Yes. Yes, we can see.
Oh, you can. Okay.
On full slide mode?
Okay. Once again. Yeah, full slide mode. Yes.
Oh, we can see the normal mode, sir, not this full slide mode.
Maybe there is a delay, but on my screen it is. Okay, let me try one more. Can you now?
No.
No.
Yes or no?
No, no.
No, sir.
Okay. Let me stop sharing and then do it again.
It's same again, sir.
Same again. Okay, let me do this actually. I think I know what's the problem. Okay, let me do this.
మీకు బాగున్నా సార్ నేను చెప్పాను కదా PMP సర్టిఫైడ్ అని
Can you please, Vidyasagar, can you please go on mute?
Sorted out the most of the specs are even artificial intelligence chat GPT failing like
Vidyasagar, can you please go on mute?
ये किसका है ये?
Okay, now Vinay and team.
No. Yeah, now we can see.
Okay.
Yes.
हो गया?
Yeah,
Yes,
because
we
that's
can
the
see now.
problem I noted. Okay, usually once we share, then we can bring that up in a big mode. But here in I think first you need to put it in hide mode and then share. That's the difference.
Sorry to interrupt,
Anyway,
Bhaskar.
okay, this is what I am. So I'm sure most of you
Bhaskar,
aware.
your
If
voice
not,
is
yeah.
not very clear. I think your bandwidth is very slow.
It's clear to me.
Okay now, because
Yeah, it
I
is.
know there is a signal issues here, but typically it won't happen every time. So once in a blue moon it happens. But is
Now
it
better.
very clear now? Okay, okay. So if anyone has that kind of a problem, I'm very happy to repeat again. But bear with me on that.
I think
Okay.
we
We
are
are
still.
losing you again, Bhaskar.
Okay, so those who are aware, I'm happy, but who don't,
Sir, if you can go on, you can
okay.
switch off video. That might work.
Okay, 1 second. Then. Better now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, maybe that could be. Okay. Okay, so first of all, Vinay, thank you, you and the PMIPCC board, PMIPCC for this opportunity. Okay, so today's session is this. So we kind of had a kind of a brainstorm which topic we need to pick. So we thought we'll pick this up. So the topic name is Engineering Excellence by Managing the Technical Debt. Okay, so before we go there, I just wanted to give you the agenda. So this is what we are going to learn, a basic intro about Agile, then, about Agile engineering, and there we kick off the actual topic, how these are interrelated. Okay, so those who have already working in Agile, pretty good idea, basic fundamentals, still the session will be a very good refresher. And those who don't have any concept, probably they have many takeaways. Of course, takeaways are for all, and definitely you can go and start implementing these in your day-to-day work. And basically the intro, more about technical depth, like including from an impact, what, why, and how portion, definition, causes, signs of known, unknown, verbal clues, and then what are the types of technical depth. After that, how to manage these, and what are some of the approaches that we can implement so that we can avoid the technical debt. And then there is a sample DOD, how DOD will help us to avoid the technical debt. Then this is one thing I wanted to ask you. So definitely you can feel free to type in the chat box. If you feel that I didn't cover, we can discuss in the last couple of minutes. And obviously FAQ, questions and answers, definitely we have a couple of minutes. Now, when I come here, I just wanted to ask you and help me when I don't want to toggle again, so don't want to get into in between. But you tell me whenever there is a right answer. Yes, I mean the first fundamental question I always start with whenever I start any session is like, what drives the agile versus what drives the waterfall? There is only one keyword. If you can help me to share or talk, that would be great. So there is only one key factor which drives the complete agile space. Similarly, there is one key factor that completely drives the waterfall space. What is that key factor? Can anyone share or write in the chart? Come on, teams. How many of you working in agile out of all participants?
So I'm
Anything
seeing answers in the chat. Sriram said, finished software is the measure in Agile. Chaitanya,
Mhm,
time. Ravi, incremental delivery.
mhm,
Veera Kishore, dynamic requirements. Scope,
mhm, mhm.
yeah, requirements.
Okay. So where is the chart
So,
here, Vinay?
the,
I'm having a hard time. But anyway, I will not get in there. So I don't want to miss my PPT here again. Okay. So, but so far the answers, I didn't get the right answer. It's just one word. That's it. 5 letter, one word. Simple. And what drives the waterfall is a 4 letter, one word. Very simple. What is that?
It's a value.
Super. Who said that? Thank you so much. So value is the key factor that drives the agile. Now tell me what drives the waterfall. I will give a clue. You are a project manager and you always focus on that wonderful Bible. What is that? You are a project manager. You always focus on one thing. What is that?
Adil was is saying plan,
Super,
Project management
super.
plan.
Project
scope.
scope.
Yes. You got it. Plan is the key factor that drives the entire waterfall space or traditional space, because as I gave a clue, project manager, he always looks at plan first, start and date, anything that he wants to communicate to the team, any stakeholder, any change comes in, where we are versus what to accomplish, when to accomplish, things like that. So it's always focusing on the plan. But what about in agile? Agile is something way different, wherein it's always customer centric. Always how to satisfy the customer, how to generate the value. The minute you deliver certain value, sprint on sprint or iteration on iteration, then the customer will be very, very happy. Okay, so remember those two. Of course, the next one is, of course, what's the difference between waterfall and agile? I will show you one slide thereby, but this is the basic fundamental. So you should, as long as what drives agile versus waterfall, that makes a lot of sense. Now I'll ask you one more, values and the principles. These two comes under manifesto. How many values we have in agile? Part of the manifesto. Come
12
on, team,
values.
quick.
Step.
Pardon?
Come
Four,
on. Quick. Pardon?
Just the number. How many values we
12
have?
values.
Agile values.
four. We got answer in four, sir. The chat.
Okay, very good. So part of the manifesto,
No,
we
no.
have values 4, and then we have principles 12. Okay, so you have to be by heart, do whatever, but you have to remember this. And this is the base, the platform, which is the manifesto. Manifesto consists agile values and agile principles. Never ever say like agile methodology, this, that. No, we don't have something like that. All you need to say simply agile manifesto. Underneath, like each framework has its own way of thinking, way of working. Very simple, right? So all individual, if you look at Scrum, Kanban, XP, Lean, whatever the framework you look at, each individual framework has its own set of practices, principles, values, but all of them are really aligned to our Agile manifesto. Okay. I don't want to get into much detail, but this is necessary for you to remember. Now, the last and the least, which is very, very key. What do you mean by being agile versus doing agile? Anyone give a shot? What do you mean by doing agile versus what do you mean by being agile? You can talk if you want. I mean, writing will take a lot of time, but what does it represent? When I say being agile, what do you mean? When I say doing agile, what do you mean? It's happy. I mean, if you can share it in brief, like in a less than 5 seconds, that's also fine. If you can explain.
No, Bhaskar, agile is to be quick and fast.
Okay.
In my opinion, being agile is mindset. Doing agile is the, what do you say, methodology used.
What does it comes there when you say methodology? Just try to away to that
Different
word.
things like Scrum methodology, Kanban. So this is what comes to my mind when it comes to methodology.
Yeah. So, my dear participants, I've been telling you, keep away to say that word methodology. Okay. So just be, agile is always, as I said, it's a mindset, it's a way of thinking, way of working. Just don't say going forward the methodology. If you really wanted to say any frame, anything like Scrum, Kanban, XP, Lean, these are all frameworks. There's nothing called methodology. Okay. So, and don't try
Or
to.
adaptability.
Okay. At least some of you are very closure, but I will give you the very brief. What exactly when you say being agile reflects, what exactly when you say doing agile reflects in the coming slides. Okay. This is what I wanted to showcase. Yes, you all know the difference being there are some, which is waterfall always plan driven, agile is always value driven, and there is a waterfall is always defined process control, whereas agile is empirical process control. Because you know the defined versus empirical, right? The input output are known, and the tools techniques is kind of a processing. So that's what truly happens in case of a waterfall. But in agile is a empirical process is the true example where you don't know input, you don't know output. Sometimes you know the input, you don't know the output, things like that. Waterfall is very predictive, and then agile is always adaptive. And waterfall requires every piece of work need to be completely understood before you even go further. But whereas agile is something like, runs through three pillars called transparency, frequent inspection, and adaptation. So it's always just in time because you always open for the changes at any given point in time. So that's what, it's very flexible, very open for changes, welcome changes, all that. Okay. Hopefully, if you can remember this slide, that would be sufficient. Now, as I said, what does it take to be being agile? Okay. In nutshell, being agile is like a true agile. How does it happens true agile? And when you say doing agile is like, in a way, it is command and control. But how? Let's see. So this is what it is. Okay. So it can be adopted even in the command and control. This is called doing agile. Why we are saying doing agile? Because you are mostly focusing on the tools, processes, practices. That's it. Okay. And while doing so, is it more visible, more powerful, less visible, less powerful? Let's see. Okay. Now, whereas the another angle is looking at your principles, values, and the mindset. So this is where the true agile comes into the picture. Whenever you adopt agile, the agile manifesto, where the agile values, principles, followed by the frameworks that you kind of working on, respective of those values, principles, practices, and it's basically a platform for you to build or start the cultural change. Now, while doing so, when you say doing agile, this is what happens. As I said, it's a more visible because when you look at tools, practice, processes, it's more visible. But do you think it's more powerful? No, it's a less powerful. Whereas when you truly looking at the true agile sense, when you are following the values, principles, and the mindset of not only the agile manifesto, but the framework that you are working on, so that will give you more powerful when you are working on a framework like called scrum or a kanban. Yes, you are kind of doing day in day out work, having aligned the either scrum or kanban, depending on which framework you are working on. You focus on those values, focus on those principles, practices, you changing your mindset day by day, aligning to the betterment towards the agile manifesto, and then ultimately that triggers somewhere over the time, down the time, that cultural shift. Okay, so clear. Hope this is makes a lot of sense to everyone. Okay, let's move on. Now
Yes.
my next topic is agile engineering. So what does comes to your agile engineering? Whenever I say ask you something, what do you mean by agile engineering? What's your answer?
Uh, Trying to understand the, what do you say, not exactly requirements, but the cases for the customer, and trying to see how we can deliver it incrementally.
Okay, very good. So in a way, it is truly iterative and incremental. Okay, but how it can be done? Okay, any other next level of your explanation? I give a clue now.
Using agile frameworks, tools.
Okay, anything else on top of it? Okay, anyway, let me continue. Okay, so in order to measure the maturity levels, okay, so one you can consider with respect to the team, I'm saying. So any agile team, if you really want to have some maturity levels in place, yes, I look at about the team composition first, then the team dynamic second, then the product, then my agile process, then I will look at agile engineering. Okay, so this agile engineering is all about, I gave so much of explanation here, but it is simply iterative and incremental. So when you do wanted to successfully do this, how do you do? Whether you have two pieces in there. One, the awareness piece of what? SDLC, like every team member or all teams in the organization should follow certain approach and very, very well defined procedures, guidelines, standards that can be not limited. SDLC, DevOps. Now the new concept came in, DevOps, security, development, operations piece, data management, environment management, and there is a big piece called automation. So automation is always done with respect to the tools. So if you don't have tools, no automation. So considering all these are all awareness, making sure in an organization you have certain guidelines, standards. You really need to look into, go and aware that as long as every team member is aware, following those as is, then the team will be really towards the maturity curve. Okay. If each team member follows differently, syntaxes differently, standards differently, then we don't do that. So this is the key portion, but this is truly the educational piece, the awareness piece. That's why I said the another piece is called truly the automation piece. Whenever you say agile engineering, yes, the automation comes into the picture. How? Bringing in the latest, greatest tools. Now, what are those two things that comes to our mind whenever you say automation? One is enterprise pipeline that we call CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous development. Now, what else? Automation, test automation, very exclusively. So, test automation is also part of the CI/CD in some cases or in most of the cases, but at least when you don't have CI/CD, at least organizations should have the approach of doing automation through using tools. But typically in MNCs, in big organizations, this is the focus. Every team is motivated to build a CI/CD pipeline, including the test automation, whether it could be unit, it could be integration, it could be code coverage, code quality, test automation, all this start through end, which is nothing but the CI/CD. Okay, so this is where the agile engineering comes, and every team member should not only aware when it comes to the automation, they need to have some expertise, the basic fundamental knowledge on the tools, as well as configuring, installing, and then executing them as well. Okay, and depending on your domain knowledge, if you're a developer, yes, you are very keen on designing, coding, and testing level, and then at a system or a functional level. Similarly, if you are truly an expert on a QA at a test side, yes, you are very, very expert in that. But for me, when it comes to agile, I will say simply development team. So initially, even though we form the composition from different skill each other, and then they up in their skills, and finally they kind of forming it into T-shaped skills, which is a cross-functional team. So for me, every agile team should be cross-functional. Hence, anything that you commit, you complete by end of the sprint or end of the iteration. So that's where the key factor comes in. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now knowing the background of what Agile Manifesto, what are being Agile versus doing Agile. Now having knowing Agile engineering, because our topic is engineering excellence by managing the technical debt. So anyone have any idea before we get into the definition causes of technical debt? Anyone has any idea the impact of technical debt? Any example can you give me? Is it very simple, light to consider, or is it very strict, severe? We need to give like big focus here. I mean, what's your feel based on so far your experience? Whether it is agile, whether it is traditional, I don't care. But anything that in terms of the impact of technical debt. Okay. Can I move on? Vinay, anyone is typing?
Yeah, Amit responded, code that need refactored that is working but may cause other issues during long time.
Okay, so I was expecting more or less some of the incidents that happened in the history that you may know or may not know, but at least let me uh, share these so that you will be surprised. Okay, one incident happened. The Ariane 5 explodes at launch, which is a loss of 370 millions. Okay, Mars climate orbiter burns up in space, which is kind of loss of 235 million. Similarly, Night Capital Trading Power Peg app, which is 460 million in just 45 minutes. Similarly, you might be aware of this big thing, Japanese Bitcoin exchange, where they kind of loss of 850,000, like 850,000 Bitcoins. So why these are all happened? So if you look at these are some of the causes why it's a stuffing a 64-byte variable, which is can represent billions of potential values into a 16-bit integer, like basically stack overflow, and inconsistent use of units of metrics. Okay, and then the test environment configuration deployed into production caused race condition, buying stocks at high price and selling at low. Basically, it's a dead code. Improper QA. That's the lack of code review. These are some of the causes. Okay. Security breach by hackers. Okay. So these are some of the big things, big incidents which are remembered in the history. But this is how, if you really neglect or if you ignore the technical debt, I think it will be very, very expensive for the organization. Now, having giving small of this intro, can you type your responses in the chat box, especially what practices would you follow to avoid such unintentional loss? I know I will get
Frequent
back.
testing.
Okay.
Frequent testing.
Anything else? Because there are many, many practices that we need to follow. Somebody also said like refactoring, frequent testing. What else we can think of?
In the chat, effective code reviews, avoid
Okay.
hard coding, testing at regular intervals, code
Okay.
reviews.
Super. Okay. So, I mean, the cause is kind of triggering them to answer, which is very good. Thank you for sharing your, ideas, thoughts. Now let's go into depth of it. So, what is technical depth basically to start with? Okay. So, this is what it is. It's in short, it's undone work. Simply to say undone work. Now, what happens over the time? It accumulates and are a trade-off between product quality and productivity or speed. This is as per Ward Cunningham. So this is how we can say technical debt is all about nothing but undone work. And it is basically, the compromise or a trade-off between product quality and productivity or speed, which means product quality and speed. So that's how we can define. Now, it's a most commonly used buzzword, I mean, in agile space, especially because every sprint on sprint or iteration on iteration, this is what we kind of, is very challenging as well. The teams are always talking about it, but how far, the teams understand the importance, criticality, severity, and then they quickly fix it. That probably uh, it's depends how they take it. And most teams knowingly unknowingly create a technical debt in software development cycle. I mean, this is a common, I will say, based on my experience. Okay. And again, I wanted to tell you, all of you, this is truly the PPT prepared based on just my last 10 to 12 years of experience on agile space. And if you look at some of the, like 75% of it my experience, and 25% maybe I referred some of the researchers, whatnot, just to make it more beautification on the topic. Okay. Now, just like monetary debt, technical debt can also become more expensive as it gets accumulated and repaying becomes harder, because you saw those 4 or 5 examples, right, which is in millions only. It's that expensive, so you need to be very, very careful. Now, the second thing, as I said, what are the causes? So some of you are already aware now, by now. So let's look at, these are the causes. We always rush at work. I mean, every organization is really interested in to go to introduce into the market first to become a market leader in that domain, in that product, in that application, whatever. Okay. So the another thing is inappropriate design or architecture. Yes, for a short term it could be, but you need to have a long term plan where to go and rectify it. Make sure it looks good. Now, reckless coding. So when I say that, like shortcuts, assumptions, short-term solutions, it's all good. Alternative available options the developers kind of consider, do best, and then put it into production. But they need to come back and also look at and make sure they go by those standards, principles of whatever that. Now, not following best engineering practices, like it could be code refactoring, pair programming, code coverage, TDD, BDD. This is a wonderful concept in Agile. The automation in Agile is only falls either in TDD, which is test driven development, or BDD, behavioral driven development, which using the Gherkin language. So how your product owners are, playing a role for your team, how they are driving it is again a critical piece. So make sure you have everything in place. Functional test automation, non-functional testing, build and integration automation. So these are some of the causes. As long as you follow in a systematic, standard way of doing things, no problem. But if you always, rushing in a short-term shortcut, then there's the technical debt. Keep on accumulating. Culture, failing too late, lack of openness, experimentation, and continuous learning. So this is from a culture perspective. Okay. Now, technical debt, let's look at what are the signs of known intentional and unknown intentional technical debt. So this is very clear. If I show you the slide, if you're really working in Agile, so this is what happens. So what are some of the known signs for intentional, technical debt? One is backlog of components or features that need refactoring. So you always ignore that. You know it, but you ignore that. Okay. Backlog defects, there are many defects. You have a defect list, and you have escape defects. Again, it's a defect which is identified by the customers, right? But again, these kind of helping you to giving you some sign, okay, this is a known or a technical debt that team should go back, look in, put some time, make sure they kind of correct that. The another known one is backlog of design and architectural change. In terms of the unknown, like signs of unknown unintentional technical debt, so what are those? So not undertaking frequent code reviews. Again, refactoring is not at all considered. Delay at integration regression testing, lack of test case automation, lack of build and integration automation. So these are signs of known versus signs of unknown. But if you really look at in agile space, in a transformation, any organization that is going through, you really witness all this. As a coach, as a team member, as a scrum master, you witness all this. But the smartness comes in, come back, look at, even though you do shortcuts just for speedy delivery, that's fine. But you need to really put something in the backlog, making sure you kind of give the transparency within yourself and the team, and then awareness bringing to the product owner, prioritizing and fixing it in the subsequent, the sprints or iterations. Clear so far? Okay. Now moving
Yes.
on. What are the verbal clues of unknown technical debt? I mean, this is truly, when I say verbal clue, anyone has any idea what does it mean? I will give a clue. What team talks all the time? Whether it is planning, whether it is daily stand up, whether it is review, retro, refinement, meetings. Can anyone say now? I gave a clue.
Whatever is completed and what needs to be completed.
Okay. What else? Because this is something that team talks all the time. Okay. So let me, having time constraint, let me continue. But you laugh while looking, but this is true. Okay. Some conversations in team that signal that we might be unknowingly creating technical debt. So what are those conversations? Let's not change the design now. We can do it in next release. You agree with me? This is how the teams will talk and convince and then take a call. But whether they really come back and do it next release, I'm not sure. As long as it is in the product backlog, I'm okay. But do they put into the product backlog? I'm not sure. Okay, so this is how it is. This is truly the conversations within team members. If it is a scaling product, yes, come couple of teams together discuss all this. Okay, code review is not required as this is simple code. Okay, this is a common, we hear the language. It just copy and paste of code, no need to refactor. Let's fix this defect later as it is minor one. It takes time to set up environment for continuous integration and deployment. Let's do it in next release. Let's do manual testing. So are you familiar like this, the conversations in the team? But do you know the impact of it over the time? Maybe after a few years, it's a big thing. It's somewhere you are putting your company's recognition, reputation in dust. Simple. But In Agile is kind of always iterative incremental. So you keep on, even though you do shortcuts, fast way of doing things, but make sure it is put in back into the product backlog for refactoring, for looking back, for whatever. Okay. So the last one is, since development and manual QA is done, we will accept the story and we will cover rest of automation code coverage as part of new story. If we fail the story, our velocity will come down. So this is how the team members will be talking within team or in a team of teams. How many of you agree? Disagree?
Anil,
Yes or
Anil
no?
in the chat, Anil in the chat
Yes.
saying this is a super realistic list. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, dear. Okay. So now let's look at types of technical debt. Okay. So there are many. I mean, anyone, any guess like how many types of technical debt we have? Just the absolute number. No right or wrong, based on your own experience. Any number, Vinay, in the chat box?
Amit saying code depth, design depth, two. And
Two.
Sangeet
Okay,
saying
okay.
n numbers.
Oh, okay, okay. N number, I know that, but I want absolute number. Okay. Anyway, so this is, here you go. 13 times based on some technical depth research team. So what are those? Architecture, build, code, defect, design, documentation, infra, people, process, requirements. In Agile we call user stories, service, test automation, test depth. You all agree here? And each one has its own significance, importance. I again and again I will say, it's okay. You as a team member, you as an expert, always rushing for whatever the pressure you have at real world to implement something, to quickly come up with a prototype and fixing it, a issue in the production, whatever. But end of the day, what I'm trying to say is, whenever you do something like quicker, faster from an alternate solution perspective, you always put that into the product backlog and make sure team is aware, product owner is also aware, so that product owner will be looking at prioritizing it and making sure you go back and look at it into, take your own time and fixing it. Okay, so this is how the technical debt comes in. Okay, so now let's look at how to manage. So we kind of covered so far very good before even coming the technical debt, the basic background, and then complete details of technical debt, including impact, definition, causes, what really happens in the real world, etc. But now, how to manage this? So that's the key. So any clues? Any approach you follow in your work area?
Mohammed in chat says frequent reviews.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's move on. So this is one very interesting, globally recognized, and people follow this, the 4M approach. So what does it mean? So the first M represents make visible, second one measure, third one is map, fourth one is monitor. Now let us look into the details of it. Whenever you say make visible, what does it mean? Yes, you as a team member, you take a lead or somebody takes a lead, always conscious about looking at having some discovery session once in a blue moon, like say I will say monthly, if not quarterly, for sure. If you have time, monthly, wonderful. But if not, I mean, when I say monthly, after every 2 sprints or every 2 iterations, okay. But quarterly is the ideal way, where 6 sprints or 6 iterations will be completing with a 2-week duration. So what is that you need to do when you say make visible? Okay, you kind of look at that exclusively in the form of technical debt. So what code that needs to be refactored? What are some of the component features that lack the automation? What are some of the defects or escaped defects we have so far? So anyone know the difference between defect versus escaped defect? Come on,
No
team,
idea.
quick. No idea. So defect is something that in your work environment, whenever you prick through till the release. When you say escape defect, that is identified and brought to your attention by the customer. Okay, so defects owned, looked at within your environment from development environment. Basically, escape defect is something in production identified by the customer only. Okay, then CI/CD automation. So where are we? Are we really doing from source code through the deployment? Are we have the right tools? Are we really doing that code coverage, code quality, code inspection, things like that? Okay, have some list, put them back into the product backlog where it will go for your PO for the prioritization. Now, the second one is measure. Now, how do you do that? Whenever you say, whenever the prioritization, whenever you bring it to PO attention, then obviously it goes into the prioritization. So then when you say measure, basically you look at tentative effort, complexity, uncertainty, feasibility, and the expected ROI. So these are some of the parameters where you kind of look into any, for example, any escape defect came and you brought into PO attention and put part of the product backlog, then PO is also on soup where he will say, no, this has to be resolved ASAP for the customers. Now, immediately, because it is prioritized, you kind of come up with the all this estimation again. So any estimation, that story points, right? So that the story point itself is nothing but your effort, your complexity, your uncertainty, basis which of your reference story. So you will be telling everyone, including PO, the customers, etc. This is how much effort that we will be looking, and we will be completing by XYZ. So any such things will be really planned ahead. Some of them are standard mode, some of them are expedite mode, some of them are time bound mode. But however you want to do it, you can do it. Okay, in consultation with customers. Okay. The third concept is map. M for map. So describe and prioritize in upcoming sprints, which I kind of included in the last conversation as well. Again, allocate depending on your capacity. So that's what. As soon as PO prioritizes, then there is no other way to say no unless you don't have a skill, you don't have a right tool, etc., etc. But this is the procedure. Now, last but not the least is monitor. So as a team, as a matured team, we always look into the existing environments where how we are doing versus what needs to be done in the future. Any defects, any causes, are we really flagging them ahead? The challenges, are we flagging them ahead? Now, as far as there is one concept called DOD. So what do you mean by DOD, team here? Can
Definition
anyone
of done.
elaborate that? Done. Definition of
Definition
done.
of done.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. So when you say definition of done, where do you apply that? Can you apply that to a user story? Can you apply that to a sprint? Can you apply that to a iteration outcome? Where do you apply definition of done?
Feature you can apply to
Feature.
certain features.
Okay. Okay. Can you apply to that sprint also?
If it has user acceptance testing.
Can you apply that to release also?
Yes.
Yeah. So answer is simple. Yes, you can. But the way you look at the parameters, the factors is different. Okay. How we look at it. So the DOD and keep improving it. So when you say monitor, the definition of done with respect to the sprint you are in, the story you are working in, are you really following? Because the definition of done comes part of your team agreements. How many of you have a team agreements in your day-to-day work environment, especially if you are in agile team? Can anyone tell me? Yes or no? Do you have any working agreement in the first place to ask a question? You don't?
In the chat, we are saying yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. So when you have a team agreement, what is that reflect? What kind of an agreement you have? Of course, one is DOD. What else you have?
The basic norms, behavior as to how it will be, how we will go ahead and do the, what do you say, the.
Okay. So that you are saying for a team. What else you have? I mean, with respect to a story or with respect to a sprint, there is one more that all need to be agreed upon. What is that? So DOD is the end of the sprint. What is the beginning of the start of the sprint? Can anyone guess? DO.
So in the chat, planning, understanding of the requirement, DOR. Anil is saying DOR. Definition of
Super,
Reddy.
super, Anil. So DOR. So basically, you need to have the basic fundamental norms within team. When do you want to come? How do you want to, work with each other? What's the, time for a daily stand-up? So these are very, very simple, basic fundamentals within the team members. When it comes to a story or a sprint or iteration, yes, what is our DOR? When it comes to again sprint or any user story, what is our DOD? So these really all together the working agreements. Okay, so for here, in order to avoid, in order to completely ideally to remove technical debt, the best way to follow is DOD. We will see how that really enable and ensure that we completely remove the technical debt. For example, this is one criteria. So DOD, as I said, it can be applied to a story level, which is basically definition of done. So there is something called acceptance criteria, right? Part of the user story. So whenever you say DOR, then only the user story comes into the prioritization. It's a good user story. It has the acceptance criteria, things like that, right? So that is the input. So the DOR is always the prefix, but DOD is the suffix after the sprint, or is this story is meeting the DOD criteria. So what do you mean by DOD criteria? If I were part of a team, we have something agreement in place. What with respect to a story, this is what I need to do. And when I am done all these 13, the DOD is done. So what are these? Peer code review, implementation of peer code review, unit test code coverage, functional test automation, localization testing, accessibility testing, performance testing, regression testing, security vulnerability testing, fixing of all open issues, code check-in, sprint review on a live environment, or acceptance testing. So you may not follow all these 13, but depending on the context for a given user story, if you really look at, are you really follow the minimum mandate these criteria, then you are good to go. Okay, so that's how each whatever you put part of your DOD, ensure that is applied and validated at end of the completion of the user story. Now with respect to a sprint, right? So after the sprint planning, you have something called sprint goal and you have something called sprint backlog. So sprint backlog is again prioritized committed short user stories, whereas your sprint goal or objective is a one or two short form like a sentence of your sprint backlog. Okay, so when you are done with the sprint, is your DOD with respect to a sprint is meeting that sprint goal or your iteration goal. If you are meeting, wonderful. But these really, really help you to avoid, I'm saying to avoid the technical debt. And there is a nice way of representation, right? Technical debt is a compromise to the quality goals. You all agree so far? But whereas DOD helps meet the quality goals incrementally. Because as long as you follow this definition of done for each user story, I think there is no way that you get the technical debt. Okay, but even if you do follow partially, that is fine. I'm saying no. I'm not saying no. You follow, but make sure you put those bits and pieces wherever you kind of shortcuts, wherever you did, for whatever reason, part of the product backlog. That comes later for either refactoring, either for some check-in, some scaling up, some enhancing the design, whatever. But making sure you need to really put part of the product backlog so that that will not be ignored. That technical debt will not be accumulated going forward. Okay, so this is what is all about. Now I will say the quiz time. I know you have been going through, but just summarize. So what are some signs of technical debt? Just a recap. I will see how many of you can recap. Maybe you can, having time constraint, just come and talk to me, like anything that you remember from one of the slides earlier. Can I help you? Backlog of.
Mohammed in the chat saying, let's do it in next release.
Okay. Okay. I think anything known, signs of known technical debt are like say backlog of components, features, that needs refactoring, backlog of defects, okay, that you know very well, and again backlog of design architecture that are known. And what are some unknown signs of unknown technical debt? Anyone can recap from that one slide again? Okay, not enough code review, okay, delay in the integration, okay, lack of test case automation, okay, lack of build. So these are like unknown, basically signs of unknown. Okay, you are so confident that you don't want to do it because you are an expert, or you are very confident enough that this will go fine, but sometimes it will come in an adverse way, so you don't take that as a guaranteed. Always go by a systematic checklist, do things 100% and go from there. Okay, so what are 4 steps to efficiently handle the technical debt? That one approach I said, what is that approach?
Sangeet in chat, 4M, monitor map, Mohammed. Yeah.
Yeah, super. So that you need to remember 4M approach and the steps make visible. Okay, and then all that you need to follow. Now, is DoD can avoid technical debt?
Yes, in the chat. Yes, they are saying.
Yes, very good, very good. So, what are 4 sample DoD criteria to avoid the technical debt? So, if you remember that one slide,
performance
yeah,
testing.
yeah. Okay, so just it is DoD itself is part of your team agreement, or I will say team working agreement. So make sure whatever the criteria you put in there, and as a team you agreed. So whether it is a user story, whether it is a task, whether it is a subtask, make sure you follow those 4 criteria. And then I will say, like for example, if you have 4 criteria as part of DoD, then make sure you kind of check all those 4 once you are completing that story or a task or a subtask. Okay, so let me conclude this one. In summary, these are the 3 things that I can highlight overall. One, always remember what is a debt. It's like technical debt is all about undone work, and it is basically the accumulated compromise or a trade-off between product quality and productivity, or product quality and speed. And the cost of clearing technical debt increases as it ages, and it might hurt the organization reputation as well. So make sure, be cautious there. A strong DoD criteria can help avoid technical debt and improve the quality of product. That is without any doubt. So make sure if you don't have any working agreement as on today in your team, when you go tomorrow, make sure you have the working agreements. One is a team norms for the team members, second DOR, third the DOD, part of your team working agreements. Okay, with that I will open it for all of you for a few more minutes. I'm happy to spend time here. Back to all open for questions and answers.
So in the chat, Virakishore is asking, can this technical debt be tracked, measured, and improved?
Yes, the answer is yes, right? So you remember those 13 types of technical debt? Because in Agile world, it's an opportunity for you. Say, for example, you have a Scrum framework. Every event that you will be in is an opportunity for you to flag it down, right? So if you are in sprint planning, always discuss what stories that you did last time versus any shortcuts you did, etc., right? And then daily stand up, yes, for a quickly just to turn over, this is what I'm doing. You can always flag it down and put it part of the product backlog, and then again review, refinement session. And so every event itself in a retrospective also, you have opportunity to bring in, to list down those technical debt. Yes.
Okay, Sangeet is asking, how can we ensure that whatever is discussed, it is strong DOD?
Whatever, can you repeat that, Vinay? Whatever we discussed.
It is a strong definition of done.
Yeah, so
He's
the
asking about
definition.
maturity of the definition of done. Yeah.
Okay, so the definition of done, as I mentioned to you, it will be applicable for a story. In a way, this is, for example, exclusively I kind of give it to you with respect to one user story, right? So if you apply this, you may not be considering all these criteria, 13 criteria that you as a team, within in your team 6 people working together, say, so you all need to come, okay, and whenever we take any user story, yes, let's do the code review 100% without fail, and then unit test 100%, functional test 100%. Okay, and then this over the time when we are done, the sprint review, okay, when it goes in live. Okay, and then also prior to implementation, user acceptance testing, UAT testing. Somebody you can ask, from a customer point of view, to test it as well. So any criteria that you define part of the DOD, make sure you follow that, and then that's how the team will be committed, agreeing on something, and then completing as well once the story is completed.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
So Krishna Reddy is okay. I think the same question here.
Okay.
Virakishore is saying, when the TD is unknown, technical depth is unknown, how can we predict the size of it?
Mhm. That is something like you need to do go by spike. You remember spike?
Yeah.
See, when you really look at least you have some clue, right, out of this. Let's say some, I will say, architecture depth. No clue for you. You don't know what it is. So what I will do as a team member or within my team as a scrum master. So naturally, when team don't have any clue on that particular, then creates some spike. Spike is all about research, investigation, some experiment, making sure what is there in the system, and if there is nothing in the system, what can be if you apply. Okay, so basically you gather the information to make a decision. If it is already there, wonderful, but if it is not there, when you want to introduce also, you need to kind of look what is there already in the system versus what you are trying to enhance it. Okay, but if it is already there, what functionality is happening versus now what needs to happen, what you want to trying to do. So basically researching the current scenario, current status will help you to make some information. Sometimes some data gathering will also help you in a big way. But again, having a spike part of your sprint, uh, spending some dedicated time on it and working through it, knowing some information from there, sharing it with PO or maybe with subject matter experts on that domain will help you to at least to come to some conclusion. Make sense?
Okay. I think I don't see any more questions, sir.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Thank you, everyone. So I'm sure you might have got some outcomes here. And when you work from Monday, so make sure you consider these steps, clues, and just not only the basic fundamental background on this, but also on the how portion. If you can go at least implement one of these, that would be great. You see wonders in the organization. So thank you all. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, PMIPCC, for this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
thank you, Bhaskar Garu. So I'll do the closing rituals. So in the honor of you, sir, for taking us to the wonderful topic as a speaker from behalf of the board, thank you very much. And we have a thicket of 5 trees, trees for tigers, Sundarban National Park, West Bengal. We have planted these trees. Thank you very much for coming forward again. And we will look forward for your continuous support for Agile series and other chapter events. Thank you very much, Bhaskar Reddy Garu. And coming about the upcoming workshops, PAP and PMI's ACP workshops, sorry about that typo there. Please connect to our director of our academy, Teshu Ganti. He can reach out at 49989136831, and you can mail at academy@pmipcc.org for the dates and the fee structure for the ACP and PMP workshop. And for the most happening thing in the chapter right now, our annual flagship conference, Galahari 2023, the dates are announced and we are gearing up. Our team is really working hard and we are getting good speakers on board. This year, as you all know, we have come up with the theme Project Management, Delivering Value Through Disruption, which is very much apt topic in the current scenario. Please do get register yourself for the Galahari. If you need any help, please do reach out to us. And as a attending for this webinar for today, you'll be crediting one PDU in the way of working. It is auto credited based on your registration attendance. You will be getting the one PDU. Give us maximum 1 week of time. The PDU will be auto credited. And thank you very much for joining again. And for any more questions, please do reach out to me at membership at pmipcc.org, or you can connect to me at via mobile 9989348878. And thank you once again for joining on Saturday morning. And we will continue the series and we will come up with one more interesting topic with another seasoned agile coach. Thanks for joining and have a good rest of the day and have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Vinay.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.